Hey everybody, it's Aaron the Pedantic. So as I said in my last video, I had started talking about the Dungeon Crawl Classics funnel that I just ran the other day, and then I had some people come over that were here to help with moving stuff. So I had to stop right then and go do all of the stuff with them as much as I could until I no longer had their assistance. And now I'm back. So I wanted to finish the video, or actually start a new one, where I finish that whole discussion, and then I can move on to getting back to moving. So that is why it ended so abruptly, and why I'm basically just kind of starting over. It was actually kind of funny. I tried to edit the video so that way it stopped before I began the discussion on the DCC funnel, but I uploaded the wrong one. So even though I did fix it on my end, you didn't end up seeing it. Oh well. So how did the funnel go? So what I had already said in that previous video was that one of the big things that I really am looking for in Dungeon Crawl Classics modules right now, and I'm really hoping people can give me recommendations, is I'm looking for modules that they have done that are not linear as far as the map design goes. And unfortunately, that seems to be not the most common thing whenever you look at their modules. I've looked at quite a few now, and I can pretty quickly now, especially whenever I go to the local game store, because they do have Dungeon Crawl Classics modules, I can very quickly determine if I want to purchase a particular one, because I can flip to the maps and then see, well, does it go in what is essentially a straight line, where the only decision that the players are really making when it comes to how they're tackling the dungeon environment is, do we go forward or do we go backward? And if so, if that is what I'm seeing, then I kind of want to pass on it. I either want to pass on it, or maybe I'm going to look closely enough to see is the overall premise and most of the details here good enough that I will just personally add some rooms and, alter the layout somewhat. Even then, if I'm putting that amount of work in, I may as well just do my own dungeon. Why am I bothering with the middleman if I have to go to those links of extra work? And that's a solid question. At this point, I really don't know if I want to bother with that kind of thing. I've picked up a few just today, in fact, that were, they were open enough that I feel like the players aren't going to feel like they're just on what amounts to a railroad, which, we can argue about our definitions of railroad all day long. But one of the reasons that I went with Sailors on the Starless Sea, oh, by the way, again, if you know of some DCC modules that are not linear, throw them at me. Absolutely throw them at me. Okay, moving on. One of the reasons I chose Sailors on the Starless Sea, there's actually two big reasons. Three. Okay, number one is because it's a very, very, very good module. It should be good enough, right? Secondly, because it's a very popular, well-known module, and these are all people that have not played before. And I think there's a lot of value in people playing a module that other people are likely to have played. So to me, running something, just anything else, anything that's not Sailors on the Starless Sea for DCC, it's a kind of a crapshoot as to how many people have actually experienced it. Most people will have experienced Sailors on the Starless Sea if they have played any Dungeon Crawl Classics, because it's the one that everybody talks about. Everybody says that it is a fantastic zero-level module, and it's just a fantastic module, period. It is a good reimagining of Hamlet. Is kind of Hamlet, the Moat House in Hamlet. That is definitely the case. But so that means that because more people are likely to have played it, then my players get the opportunity to talk to other people who have played DCC and then talk about their experience. How is their version of that adventure, compared to how the other people's version, how did it play out? What do they do differently? What kinds of things transpired? I think there's a lot of value in that for the players. I really do. So now I'm not someone that swears by modules and says, I'm going to run nothing but modules because I want people to have all these experiences, and because people that created them took the time to, really fill them out with all kinds of great stuff. I also enjoy creating my own things. So what I'm doing right now is I'm running modules until I finish the rest of my enough of my world building prep and my own dungeons and things like that that I want to use in the campaign to the point where I'm ready to just, kind of like transition to that, where I'm seeding more into the world. Hey, there's the keep there's kind of some weird stuff going on. You might want to investigate that, or there's a castle over there, people talk about some ghosts haunting it. Before I do that, I'm trying to just be like, okay, so what I'm doing here is whenever we finish the funnel, I said, y'all have heard 3 rumors, 3 entirely different adventure seeds. Which one do you like? Which one sounds interesting? They all voted for the exact same one. So now I get to prepare that module for next week. I'm not going to say what it is yet. I doubt that any of them would be like, oh, I've got to buy that module and I've got to read it. So that way I'm ready and I can kick lots of ass whenever we play the game. I don't really see them doing that. They're not those kinds of people. But, just for giggles, I'm not going to mention it yet. I will just say that it has to do with a tower belonging to a very, very, very notorious, powerful wizard in the DCC universe. So I will just say that much, and that it's available and they get to go explore it. That's all I'm going to say for now. But I will say that they passed on Frozen in Time, which makes me sad because I love Frozen in Time. And what was the other one? Oh, the other one. I'm not going to say the name because I'm just going to I'm going to throw that back in there in the mix. So I'm going to leave that one alone. But so that was what I did at the end of the session. Now, as far as how the session went, it was lethal as fudge. Now, this one, every time I've run it, it's always been really lethal. That's how it's just going to be. So for those who don't know, whenever you're doing a funnel, and in this case, I laid out some severe disclaimers and everything. I was like, this is not how the rest of the game is going to be. This is not even what I would consider a selling point for the game. This is nothing more than an interactive character creation minigame. That's basically what the funnel is. It is an opportunity for you to have all kinds of very weak people that are going to, just be fed into an absolute meat grinder. And then by the end of it, you will have some things that do survive. And those things are your polished level 1 characters that may get to survive a few sessions if they're lucky. That's just how DCC goes. So I laid down those expectations. I also let them know, and this is just how I do funnels because this is how I was taught from the person that did the public games in my area. I learned to have the players limited in which player character they are using in combat. Combat specifically is the important thing there because the fact of the matter is they're controlling 3 to 4 PCs at a time. And so if we were to allow them to manage all of their characters at once in a fight, and I've seen it done before, then what ends up happening is you often have maybe 2 or 3 bad guys, maybe 5 to 6 bad guys at any given time. And then you have a giant mob of player characters. And so then it becomes a whole issue of, if you are going to take the time, having to consider positioning and do they have the ability to attack this person or not? Like, how many people are there in front of them? Is there a clear area for them to do so? It makes the theater of the mind thing either make it so that numbers don't matter at all as far as like how many people are attacking because you're not considering it, or it's just a nightmare to keep track of. You're having to, maybe just write stuff on a piece of paper and, do all that. And it just becomes a whole thing. So instead of doing that, in making it so that if you roll higher on the initiative, then you won the fight before they even get to do anything. Because that's also what happens when you have, 24 characters that are all attacking a few things with low HP. Then instead of doing that, what I do is you control one frontline fighter. And so you choose which one of your characters that is. And that's the person that you use in combat. Whenever they die, you use the next person. And so on until you run out of your characters. So you get to arrange what order they are. And unless you fail a luck check really miserably, then, you know, one of your, then that's the character that's going to be the most dangerous. So usually what people end up doing is they try to make the character that they like the most be the character that they are keeping the safest. So usually that's the one with the best stats. This is why when anybody is creating characters of level 1 or higher for DCC, I just tell them you're not going to use 3d6 down the line, because that's not generally what we're producing here. What you usually get is 3d6 down the line for 4 characters, and you choose your favorite. That's usually what you're actually getting, except for with the funnel, there is the off chance that that character may end up dying. Outside of combat, if your character's occupation becomes relevant and that's not the person that's your frontline fighter, fine. Just, you know, you can have them do something. It's fine. No big deal. Who cares? In fact, I much prefer that, because then there are all these creative ways where the players are able to argue for how their characters get to handle certain situations. And we had a lot of those come up. I mean, I'm going to have a hard time just pulling them out of the top of my head, because it has been 3 days now, and I have, like I said, I've been moving, so it's been pretty crazy. I don't think that I can do that off the top of my head just now, but that is something that you can do, and I do think that there's a lot of value in that. How the funnel went otherwise, though, there were 18 PC deaths. That is a large number, and there would have been a lot more. I felt like it very easily could have been. It could have been all of them dying if they did not do as well as they did. So spoilers for Sailors on the Starless Sea, for anybody who has not played it but they want to play it. Here's some spoilers. So you need to basically stop the video right now. Okay. So Sailors on the Starless Sea. The whole setup, the whole premise is that you have a bunch of beastmen who are capturing people from the village, bringing them up to their keep up there that's kind of this ruined place, and they are bringing them down in order to sacrifice them to bring back a Chaos Lord that had fallen there a long time ago, along with his brother, and they are trying to bring him back to life. This is part of this grand wish that he had left before he died, and they're going to go through some sacrifices in order to make it happen. So that's the premise. So I made sure that they understood that. We have some fantastic rumors that you're able to incorporate, and I used most of everything just as the way that the module provides. There really aren't very many situations where I actually deviated that I can think of. I think it was all pretty much just the way that it was delivered. So I tried to keep it as honest as possible. Now, one thing that ended up happening that is a bit of a deviation, I would say, to say the least, is that I may, you'd have to ask Harley Stroh, I suppose, I may have taken one of the things that happens in Area H, Tower of the Beast, I think it's called. I may have taken it in a direction that wasn't intended, but I'm okay with it. I am definitely okay with it because I like the way it turned out. So basically, Tower of the Beast, Area H, you have a bunch of beastmen that are holed up in there. It's usually, I think it's about 6 beastmen, and there's a chieftain. And you also have a bunch of human villagers that have been kidnapped, and they are being kept in there with their, chained up to these walls, right? And it just, there's a mentioning in there. I don't have it on me. Actually, I'm lying. I do have it on me. I have the PDF open. Tower of the Beast. There is a mentioning here about how you have this. I could be wrong. Did I completely come up with it? Oh, transforming the erstwhile heroes into feral beastmen. There we go. Captured PCs are bound in chains and hung upside down from the arrow slits like their fellow villagers before being subjected to the soul warping energies of the Well of Souls. Okay, so that is what they are doing to convert people into beastmen. This is actually a question that came up with one of the players, and so whenever I ran this, I'm going to fully admit I was running mostly off of my recollections from running it in the past. This means that there are a few things that I messed up on, just a few little things here and there. This is one of them, the Well of Souls thing. Now, they didn't go investigate the well, but whenever the question was raised to somebody who should have known how this happened, I did not have an answer exactly. This is just sad truth. Well, the answer that I thought that I had was actually not the answer that the module provides. I guess it's the answer now. But the idea is that there is a well there. There is a well, and if you look into the well, it kind of draws you in. There's kind of like a willpower check. It draws you in. And then if you fall in, then what happens is you start undergoing corruption changes. So you actually have to roll on the corruption table for as long as you're in there. There's all kinds of bad stuff that happens. And you basically fall to your death unless somehow you're pulled out. But if you're pulled out, then you're pulled out with massive corruptions. Hence all these, bestial people. So that's where they're coming from. It seems. I kind of got this idea that, there's like this miasma in here. There's some kind of dark energy that is turning people that are normal into chaos people. So this is part of the fact that I was kind of skim rereading at the last minute because I'm moving, and the amount of time kind of snuck up on me. And I've also had a lot of stuff at work, so. My bad. That is issue number one. For anybody who's actually running this, that is a detail. If you watch, or listen to my running of it, that is one place that I messed up. So you may want to make that change. Or just acknowledge that that was a mistake I made. Okay, so there is that. Okay, secondly, whenever it came to the character that was climbing up the rock wall, with all the stones and everything, I mishandled that exact thing there. Part of that is, let's see. Actually, no, I didn't. No, I don't think that I did. Okay, yes, I did. All right, so part of this is because of the. Oh no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay. No, I didn't. I did it fine. I was thinking for a moment there that the part where I read on page 4, talking about the, whenever you attempt to climb the walls, that you'd have to do a climbing check. I thought that it was saying that you need to do that also for whenever they're climbing up this, but it just says that if they do not, take the proper precautions, then they will trigger things to trigger a slide. Now, theoretically, it says all PCs on the slope are targets, but it also says that it's crushing those in their path. So it could have been really that he would have been able to not fall, because it would have been stuff below him. But then again, I did give him a reflex save, I'm pretty sure. So that may have been fair enough, I guess. Here's the thing that makes me sad. The thing that makes me sad is I've really been kind of saddened the fact that every time that I've run this, nobody has ever been able to investigate Area B1, which is Tomb of the Fallen. That is where the other Chaos Lord was buried. This is a place where there's a chance for them to find a magic item. And one of the ways to find it is to trigger the rockfall. If you trigger, this is a thing I think is a brilliant way to create a module. If that rockfall happened, the people that survived would have found that there was this secret place to go to. So you have a setback, you have a problem, but you also have something new that they can interact with. And it's a really cool thing. It is a death trap, to be sure. This is a place you do not want to go unless you're a halfling who's ready to burn a lot of luck. And I mean a lot of luck. A halfling or a thief ready to burn a lot of luck, which you can't do at level 0. It is a very, very, very dangerous place. I've never gotten to run it though. Just reading it though, you lose a lot of movement just by failing a fortitude check one time. And every round in there, you're subjected to another check. Eventually you lose all movement. You can't act at all. And then you just freeze to death. I mean, what else are you going to do? That's just what's going to happen. So you die very quickly. And then you just start taking straight up cold damage after you've been in there for a certain period of time. So you just freeze to death. That's what happens. But I would like to see people get to interact with this because there's some really cool stuff in there. There's a cursed weapon that makes things really interesting. It's a really cool weapon. There's, just cool feelings because you have like some puzzles, and not really puzzles. You have some riddle to decipher. There's just some cool stuff there. I'd never gotten to use it. So what happened whenever he died, that's why I gave him a luck check. I was like, you know what? There is a chance, maybe, that your character saw something before he fell to his death or before he completely died. And that maybe he saw the open tomb. And I was like, man, let's see if this is the thing. But at the same time, I decided I was going to go with the die roll. Some people would say, well, okay, let's say he did see it. That is player knowledge. That's not player character knowledge. So why would they go investigate it? Part of the way that I tend to play is that I am okay with certain uses of player knowledge. This is one of those things that the more I've gotten into old school play, the more I'm okay with taking that stance. I'm okay with things happening as long as it serves the betterment of the game and it doesn't really ruin things for other players. That's really the barometer that I use. So I'm not going to let people sit there and read the module that I'm running, but I'm going to let them use their player intuition that they have, and use that even though their player character might not have that same intuition. That's just my kind of thing. So in this case, I would completely have no problem with being like, okay, you see this glimpse right before you die of this hole that's open in the area, and there's some kind of chill erupting from it, something like that. So that way they're like, maybe we should go back and check that out. That might be kind of cool. That would have been neat. But he failed the luck check. So there we go. Speaking of luck checks, that is a big thing that also changed how this transpired. The luck check in the RPG itself. If you look at the rules, they are really, there's really only a certain number of things that it's supposed to do exactly. So it is a thing that's connected to alignment. Whenever they do certain things that are within a certain alignment, they should be rewarded for it. Maybe they should tick off the gods of opposing alignments whenever they do certain acts and all that. That is part of the stuff that's tied to it. But whenever you have consequences of luck and you have a lot of the things that you're going to do with them is that having low luck means that bad stuff is going to happen to you. But the way that I've been using it, for better or worse, has actually been where if a player asks me a question and I don't know the answer, but I think that it's something that's plausible, but maybe not likely, then sometimes I'll just be like, do a luck check because I'm not sure. I don't want to be biased and make a decision one way or the other because I feel like that's a little story gamey. So I'm just going to let the dice decide. Now, what I often do to do that is I'll just say, okay, there's a 3 in 6 likelihood. There's a 2 in 6 likelihood. And then I'll just roll it. And then whatever the result is, and I'll roll it publicly because I don't want the players to have to worry that, Mr. Pedantic here is being too kind. I will roll it publicly and we will find out what the result is. That is what I usually do. In DCC, I tend to use luck checks in order to facilitate this instead. Now, there's nothing wrong with using completely random, not random, it's not completely random, a proportionally accurate way of doing this by plausibility. There's nothing wrong with that. But the luck system gives you a way to reward players who are very careful about how they use their luck and people that roll very high luck to begin with. If they hold on to that luck for dear lives, then they will be the ones that are not targeted with some of the worst things that happen. And they will also be the ones who are rewarded perhaps with things that are creative, that they bring up that are also plausible. So the way that kind of played out in this session was that we had these beastmen, right? These beastmen, and some of the beastmen were people that were villagers that were transformed into beastmen. And then we also had the PCs, and the PCs are all villagers. A lot of them are looking for their loved ones who had been taken away. So whenever one of the players asked, hey, is my brother on the other side? Is that my brother? Is he here? And what at that very moment, what was happening was they were trying to open the door to the Tower of the Beast. And it's barred from the inside. Of course, they don't know this. All they knew is that they were trying to bust this thing down, and they couldn't do it. And of course, it wants you to roll like a DC 20. And how do you get to a DC 20 in the rules as they are written? It's very sketchy. Anytime that you give players more than one chance to break down a door, then it's the same thing as whenever you allow them more than one chance to pick a lock. You're really just kind of winding down the clock at that point. How long is it going to take you to get this accomplished? And at that point, you better be using wandering monsters for it to actually seem like it matters. Because if you're not, then you're just kind of wasting time. So it put me in an interesting position. Because I was just wanting them to please, for the love of God, roll a 20. But they would not. And that was the DC that was set for it. I think it's a little bit of an extreme DC. But then again, they could hack it down if they had a hatchet. Did any of them have a hatchet? Maybe. But they didn't seem to think of it. So that was kind of the conundrum we were at for a moment. But one of the players said, what do I hear on the other side? I said, I hear you hear breathing, because there are a bunch of creatures up there. That is in the module. There are a bunch of creatures in there. They're waiting. The moment that you walk in, they're going to start barraging you with attacks. Well, what ended up happening instead was he's like, Frank, are you in there? And so I was like, Frank, huh? He's like, yeah, Frank's my brother. So at that point, there are about 40 beastmen in the module, roughly. And about 40, I guess. Probably less, but whenever you factor in the amount of the amount of captives that could be turned into beastmen, so there's about a 1 in 40 chance of the one that was sitting by that door of being Frank. Roughly about 1 in 40. But so I could have, because I have a D30, I could have rolled a D30, and on a 1, I could have been like, okay, yeah, it's Frank. That's how I would have handled it. Otherwise, perhaps maybe gone a little bit higher, just depending on what the luck modifier is or whatever. I might have incorporated that. Maybe he has a 4 in 30 chance if he has a +3 in luck. Who knows? But instead, I was like, roll a luck check, because this was a situation where it was possible, not necessarily that likely, but it was still possible. And it was definitely interesting. It was definitely an interesting development if that were to be the case. So he rolled it, and he passed. That means, in this case, the way that I ruled it was that was indeed Frank at the door. And so then, yet again, I have another conundrum. Well, okay, Frank is not human entirely anymore. Just how far gone is he? That is a big question that I had to ask myself. So what I did was I was like, okay, this is your brother. He is going to recognize you. And I think that we did a personality check at this point. He's going to recognize you. And I kind of demonstrated that. And, he's a gorilla. So he goes, ooh, and so then, so he's not going to want to hurt you, but all these other people make him nervous. So and I'm like, oh, he backs away. And I was thinking in DM brain, he backs away because he knows that those people up there can rain down death on the people that are accompanying his brother. And he may not be smart enough anymore to be all like, okay, well, that could end up in my brother dying. Maybe he's not that smart. All I knew is that he was nervous about all this big, enormous posse of people with weapons. And so he's backing up. So what ended up happening then is somebody launches a stone at him and busts him in the eye. So now he's almost dead. And he cowers away into the darkness. And then we ended up getting into this grand fight. So they very quickly ended up killing the chieftain. It wasn't that bad. There were a decent number of deaths in this fight. They ended up killing the chieftain. And after that, it basically says they all start fleeing. They all start fleeing after the chieftain dies. They're going to try and get out the door. Getting out the door is kind of an issue considering that's where they were coming in from. So you have to get through the giant posse of people. I don't really think that's very feasible. I think it would make a lot more sense if they were directed to go down. But, it is what it is. So, what ended up happening there, I did morale checks. So this is a little bit out of the ordinary. I actually did morale checks for all of them because it just explicitly says, no, they're going to run. I did morale checks, and one of them wanted to stay, and it was just kind of an iffy situation because the morale check results were a little bit off, and this may have been a point where maybe I should have just been like, no, this one's gonna run. But I kept on going with it, and what the hell? It ended up cool. They ended up killing him in an interesting way. One person decided he wanted to try and convert them, and I had already done like a personality roll with one of the characters, and with how that transpired. Frank was neutral, and more or less, he definitely wasn't hostile. Especially after his leader's dead, he's not gonna put up much of a fight now. But now his brother's here, and everybody kind of calmed down, and they weren't trying to kill him. So at that point, he's kind of on board. And then you have these other two that I did a check and everything, and it turns out that they were actually interested in this one person trying to convert them, which was probably a religion that they already had. So this may have been a chance for them to kind of be reminded of what their nature is or was before they were transformed into these creatures. And so now the group consists of 3 beastmen as being part of the party. And so how do we go along with that? How's that going to transpire? We ended up just kind of rolling with it and seeing what happens. So they now have somebody with a gigantic snake head. They've got somebody with a boar head, and then somebody with that's mostly gorilla, mostly halfling, giant halfling gorilla. So that was kind of the dynamic we were going with. That was a result of using the luck, using the personality checks and all that. And there was a part of me that was kind of like a more hardcore DM, I guess. It's like, no, these are creatures of chaos now. They don't really give a crap about who they used to be. They are fully part of the cause, and they can escape or you can kill them. But I feel like this ended up being a lot more interesting. So I'm really glad that this is kind of how it ended up going. So what else? Now, whenever they were investigating areas, there was some stuff that they skipped in the Tower of the Beast. There was a lot of stuff that they skipped before that. There was like a cache of items that they could have gotten that would have gotten them quite a bit of treasure. And of course, there was the stuff in B1, B1 as in the Tomb of the Fallen, not as in the Into the Unknown, or You know the one. So the into the Borderlands, whatever. Anyway, so they had skipped a lot of that stuff, and then they were finally at a point where they're about to find some treasure, and that worked out for them. They did manage to find just barely. Just barely. They managed because they just barely decided to go ahead and check out the empty treasure chest. Mostly because somebody wanted to like fit in one. They were thinking, hey, if a halfling can fit in there, maybe I can hide in the treasure chest. And you can carry the treasure chest around. And I can pop out. And I love the way that they're thinking like this. I love it. I just, again, with that, I was just rolling to see it because I really hadn't thought one way or another. It doesn't say one way or another, how big these treasure chests are. So I just kind of rolled for it to see, if any of them would be large enough, but no, they didn't end up being large enough. I think it was a luck roll again. So they weren't able to do that, but because they were inspecting, they did notice that there was a false bottom. And because they're smart enough to use a crowbar, they didn't end up losing fingers. If they actually tried to pull it loose with their hands, they would have lost some fingers. So that was how that went down a little bit differently. When they went down a little bit further, I'm very, very delighted to say that this may be the first group I had, because I've run this maybe 3 or 4 times, that actually found the magic ring that is in the tube, the pool full of skulls, where you can open the thing and it'll flush you down. And of course they were tied together, so he didn't actually get pulled in. So that was really good planning on their part. getting flushed down the drain, like pulling the drain out of a bathtub. He didn't get pulled down. They were able to go down there, and he found the ring. Now, technically, I did mess up on this a little bit because it's kind of a matter of luck, I think, whether or not you end up finding the ring in the first place. But he was in the right area. It was a secret area. I was just like, oh, you see it, you see the glittering. It's fine. That may have been a little bit bad on me, but I guess to make up for it later on, they ended up having to roll a luck check in order to not lose it to the Kraken. When I say Kraken, it's really the Chaos, the Leviathan monster or whatever. So then we got to a point where they had kind of, the party was like, well, we could continue going down this tube, or we could continue going down the path that is already there, the main path. I feel like we should go check out the main path. And then there's just this whole about which way do we go? This is a situation where a collar is really useful, and I may end up having them do a collar in the future. I really am trying to avoid it if at all possible, but they are at the number of players where it may be necessary, especially if we're doing like an actual concrete dungeon delve with a lot of branching paths and things like that. It may be necessary for me to designate a collar for them, or for them to elect somebody to be a collar. Because we were at a point where nothing was happening because they were arguing about which way to go. Fortunately, one of the things that I learned is that if it doesn't matter, if it literally doesn't matter, just tell them it doesn't matter. And that's what I did. I was like, y'all, it really doesn't matter. Like, y'all are going to it ends up in the same place. It is fine. There are some times where, for the benefit of keeping the game going, just giving them some meta knowledge so that they will move forward is okay, in my opinion. People may disagree with me. I may have been enough of a purist at one point where I would have said, no, you never give them that knowledge. That's breaking the sacred contract of the DM to just be an impartial, that kind of thing. And then I've just been like, oh, I'm just going to barrage them with random encounters until blah, 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 blah. I didn't do that. So I just went ahead and told them, yeah, it's going to end up in the same place. So, what else happened? Well, whenever they moved beyond that, everything was going at a pretty good tempo. The bit with the Leviathan, I'm pretty sure I did that accurately. Just as I did just about everything else. I'm pretty sure I did that accurately. The only thing is that I feel like at one point when I read it, it said that there was a certain number of sacrificial victims when it would be appeased, and I couldn't recall what that was. So it ended up killing 5 of them in one round. And I was like, okay, it's happy. It killed 5 PCs in one round of attacking. After it held the ship, they still didn't give it what it wanted. So it took what it wanted, and then it let them go. That's kind of how it transpired. There were just very few of them left at that point. There were not a lot of them left. And I am so happy that they took the robes. This is also another thing that no group that I've been in, I don't know if I always forget to describe the robes or whatever, but this time whenever I was running it, I was like, I am going to make sure they know that there are chaos robes in that room. So I was sure to describe the symbol. I was sure to describe all that stuff because I know that my players, when I ran Hamlet, there are robes in Hamlet, and people ended up using them. And so maybe there's something I did there where maybe I described the robes and the symbol a little bit more, and maybe they're more inclined to be like, oh, hey, we could pretend to be cultists if we wanted to. So that is what they did. That is how they got past 22 Beastmen. You can choose to climb up the sides of the ziggurat, or you can choose to, just walk right up if you are disguised in the cultist robes. And that is what they did. They did the latter one, which is good because climbing up there is dangerous. They would have lost more people. Now, the next thing that happened was that they reached the summit of the ziggurat, and they are in the midst of the ceremony in order to bring back Molon. All hail Molon, right? And so they were starting to do that, and they decided they wanted to do some sneaky poo. They wanted to try and sneak up on him. Now, there is a thief skill that allows you to do this with a bonus. I could have had them all roll for it individually or whatever, but I just figured, you know what? They are really preoccupied with the thing that they're doing. So they're going to go ahead and not notice. Sure, I can just say that. They're making a lot of noise. People are screaming because they're being thrown into a pit of magma. there's all kinds of drums playing and all this stuff. So, why not? What's the issue? Well, the module actually says, that the moment that they get up there, it's time to fight. They throw the effigy in, and then out comes Molon, ready to kick lots of ass. So there's really not a chance that they can stop Molon from coming. This is one of the things I've noticed, again, about some of the modules for DCC. Another one that I often bring up is, I think it's Curse of the Kingspire, where something is going to happen no matter what the PCs do, no matter what, it's going to happen. And that is something I cannot stand as a judge and as a player, is whenever the module says, well, we're going to make sure that the cool thing happens no matter what. Anytime it does that, I am not happy. So whenever I encountered this and it came up, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to err on the side of it's possible that you sneak up there, because that is a lot more interesting than, oh no, they always see you every time and they're going to throw this in and then it's going to bring the bad guy and then you're going to fight the bad guy. And it was especially funny because they did sneak up on them, but the thing that they were doing still, ended up making the thing fall in. So, that is ended up what happening. They were able to, knock out a few cultists before the big battle commenced, but they also threw in the effigy themselves, which I love. I love that they ended up, causing the thing by themselves. It is beautiful. It is beautiful when stuff like that happens, and it wouldn't have happened if I would have just been like, oh no, he throws it in. So Molon comes. They took skulls, which again, this is another thing that none of my groups ever do. None of my groups ever take the skulls. I don't know why, but this is the first group that ever took the skulls, and they decided that they wanted to throw them at Molon. Well, actually, one of them decided they wanted to throw them at the Beastmen, and the Beastmen are not going to, it's not going to respond to the Beastmen. I could have made the interpretation that maybe the hatred that they have for Molon extends to his servants, maybe, but I decided not to. I decided that might be a little bit too generous. So apologies, OGGM, whenever you tried to do the very cool thing where you're going to bowl down the ramps and, do a knockout. Do a strike or whatever, knock out a whole bunch of them. That didn't work. But between the skulls, between their surprise attack, between the brave sacrifice of one of I believe it was a halfling warrior that just jumped in there and went nuts on him, they were able to take down Molon with no issue, which every other time that I have run this, it's been so sketchy that I cut down the number of beastmen that are on the ziggurat, because I was like, there is no way that they're going to be able to handle this. They're just all going to die. There's just no way. But they did it. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to hold their hand. I didn't have to help them in any way. They accomplished everything. Maybe the great prophet Harley Stroh was correct in the first instance, and I should have just listened to what the module said, because if they can't pass this, then they don't deserve it. He didn't say that, but that it should be left as written, and I should not be altered. Maybe that is what I should have gone with to begin with, but the people that I ran with before, they would not have survived. They genuinely would not have survived. So I think it did work to in the best way that it could. So somebody ended up grabbing the flail, which is a really cool magic weapon. They get to ignite it once a day, and it gets to have 3 rounds of being on fire and doing extra fire damage on hits, which is cool. They got the magic ring, which is incredibly powerful. So the wizard has a magic ring, and now he has a lot more magic at his disposal, and he's better at casting spells overall. But now that's another thing where there's this coveted magic ring. Those historically are known to cause problems for people. So we get to toy around with that idea a good bit. We also have level 1 characters. So people were able to decide what level 1 characters they were going to end up with. And one of them is a manimal. So we had these Chaos Beastmen, and nobody wanted to play Frank, probably because now he's only got one eye. But, somebody decided they wanted to play as Snake. So since they were playing as Snake, which is the one with the snake head, we decided well, let's just use the Mutant Crawl Classics Manimal class. So we're throwing Mutant Crawl Classics into the mix. Will that be a terrible mistake? Maybe. I bought a judge's screen just so that I could have the critical chart without having to pull out the whole book. But I'm probably going to have to pull out the whole book anyway for whenever he uses his stuff. So we're going to throw in some Mutant Crawl Classics in there, which means I'm going to throw in some artifacts. Which means this is going to be a little bit more of a gonzo game than it was already. But that's cool. I'm happy with that. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. I'm excited. I'm very excited. I think that it's going to be a great game. The players all are really cool. They seem to vibe together really well, even though it was their first time playing together. None of them have played together at all, to my knowledge. None of them have played together at all. I have only played with 2 of them before. Lilith, who is a very significant person in my life, in real life, and then OGGM, who's a very significant friend, on the interwebs, who I think is a very, very cool dude. So that is how the session went. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer, and I hope y'all have a fantastic day. And I look forward to breaking down the next one. See you later.